IVM.
Hi, welcome to another episode of a show about crypto. This show has been on quite the journey and we've made it all the way to Ethereum. And on that note, from Ethereum, I want to launch into our next topic, which is a word that comes up very, very often in the crypto discussion, and that is altcoins. And to talk to me about altcoins, I have with me today the very genial Akshay Aggarwal, who is the chief and co-founder of Blockchain India, which is a community of blockchain enthusiasts that are trying to see how they can leverage the blockchain to solve a bunch of India's problems. Akshay, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Rohan, for having me. I've been looking forward to, a lot of your content, and it's a pleasure to be here with you.
No pressure, no pressure. So I'm going to launch straight into the first question, which I have, which is, now that we're here, Akshay, what is an altcoin and how does it affect my life?
Sure. So I think you've spoken about Bitcoin or you've spoken about Ethereum, right?
Yes.
It's very important to see that everything in the industry sort of started with Bitcoin, right? And until very recently, about 80% of the total value of the whole industry was dominated by Bitcoin, right?
Right.
So we came up with this term alternate coin as to, give everything else apart from Bitcoin this name, right? So Ethereum was the first altcoin that became popular after Bitcoin, right?
So Ethereum is also an altcoin. It just happens to now be the biggest of altcoins, and so we sort of talk about it on its own terms. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I really vouch strongly for Ethereum since the very first. I think at least since 2016. Yeah, so Ethereum sort of dominating altcoins, but then there are so many others that are producing value. For example, Ripple is one which is used for cross-border remittances. I'm sure we'll talk a little further into use cases. We have Brave, which is a whole new browser in itself, and it's got its token called BAT. Then we have Stellar, again a remittances coin. We have meme coins. We have so much happening in the crypto space. So basically, there are about 7,000 other coins.
7,000? That's a lot of coins. So what problems do these coins solve? What is sort of their raison d'etre is what I want to know. Why does a Cardano exist? Why does an Ethereum exist? Why does a Polygon exist? Why do any of these things exist? And what do these 7,000 things do? Or what are they trying to do that Bitcoin does that they want to catch up with?
Exactly. So I think if you look at, where the industry started, Bitcoin was just, the idea was internet money, right? But then there was no structure surrounding it. So, you have a currency, but you don't have a whole set of financial kind of institutions, all of that surrounding that currency, right? We have this whole idea of a parallel decentralized infrastructure for finance. And, most of it is powered by smart contracts, which is what Ethereum invented. Basically it is this automated way of saying that if this happens, then, we'll trigger some action through code, right? And most of the times it's about you got something that you ordered online, and hence, from the contract, your money will be released to the merchant, right? Or the seller, right? So, that's how smart contracts started. Using smart contracts, not only was this financial parallel created, but there was also, completely this new world of internet, what we call as Web3, right? Which has money as well as, the whole internet, which is information based, right? All, sort of amalgamated into one, right? And then when you look at internet, it has so many use cases, and hence, there's a parallel coin to every use case, right? So that's broadly how you would say, those 7,000 coins are relevant.
Right. Okay. So what are something like, I'm going to use another word that pops up and that a lot of people have been hyping for the last few words. So what does a Cardano do in terms of where does a Cardano sit? Is this something that is now sitting on the Ethereum network? Is it sitting on its own network? Are these altcoins, are a lot of them leveraging the Ethereum network to then base their currencies off of? And in that case, are they then, my follow-up question is, are most altcoins, or are a lot of altcoins dependent on Ethereum for survival? And what happens to these coins if, say, God forbid, something shitty happens to Ethereum at some point in the future?
So I think, three questions. I'll first answer the first one. Ethereum is the smart contracting language, which is, for the non-techies, it's kind of, a parallel to the internet, right? Internet is divided into HTTP, SMTP, which is where email lies, right? So all of those applications, but those are the infrastructural layers, right? That's being replaced by layer ones, which is championed by Ethereum, right? Bitcoin is also a layer one technology. But, the idea is with the world of web, Ethereum sort of championed the whole use case. Then comes Cardano and other likes, which are kind of like alternatives to Ethereum, because Ethereum first came with the idea. But then, various founders of Ethereum went on. So Cardano is started by Charles Hoskinson, who was earlier one of the co-founders of Ethereum, right? But there's this huge set of problems because it was so new as a technology. There were these set of problems, and specifically it was about scale, right? When Rohan Joshi does a show, there's so many people watching, right? Blockchain can't handle that right now, right? Because of that, the founders started Cardano, Polkadot, and these are more scalable infrastructure layers. So that's how they differentiate from Ethereum. Now, to your second question, if something happens to Ethereum, does that jeopardize the whole industry? I would say it's kind of the same how if something happens to Bitcoin, the whole industry will take a hit because it has about 40% of the value now, right?
Sure.
So it's close to about $1 trillion now, whereas the market is sitting at $2.5 trillion. If you look at Ethereum, it's probably about 600 billion, right? But it is kind of the most promising area after Bitcoin, and hence what we see it as is if something happens to Ethereum, all the use cases that are getting built on top of Ethereum, they might go on to build on other layer ones. But people that invested in that, believed in the proposition of Ethereum will definitely doubt everyone else that's solving the same proposition.
Sure. Yeah. Because if the market leader, for want of a better word, is suddenly looking shaky, that's going to make people doubt, I'm guessing, the entire system, right?
Exactly. So the problem sort of was first itself brought to light by Ethereum, right? And, now everybody is solving the same problem.
Oh, that's fantastic. What are certain functions? What are altcoins that you are currently excited about in terms of where you go, hey, these are coins that I think serve some pretty cool functions. And again, this is not an investment advice show. So we don't necessarily have to talk about them as speculative assets or things that are moving or anything like that. But what's an altcoin that you look at and you go, hey, I 100% see why this thing exists, and I 100% see the problems that this thing is solving.
Yeah. So I think, first let's bracket out the geeky stuff, right? So the infrastructure parts of things are, a major area, because when you look at, the traditional world, you have these marketplaces, right? I see, these infrastructure layers as decentralized marketplaces, right? So Ethereum, Polkadot, Cardano, Polygon, which is, a different way of solving it. It's a layer 2, but again, very much integral or parallel. I mean, I would say it goes, right alongside Ethereum, right? Helps Ethereum's ecosystem in a lot of ways. So all of these would be very useful. Then there is, the idea of smart contracts are only as efficient as the data that comes to it, right? So the idea is if I'm building these contracts over crap data, crap results are going to happen, right? So that's why we have.
Give me an example of crap data. Sorry, just to take it from the abstract to the specific.
Yeah. So for example, there's this application called Augur. What that does is enables betting, right? And you could, it's a whole space where you could enable prediction market, right? So let's say tomorrow, if you're betting on whether Rahul Gandhi is going to be the Prime Minister of India at some point in time, you're going to, and people are betting on it.
Of all the futures and option trades on the planet, you had to pick that one. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. Okay, but let's go with that. We're betting on Rahul Gandhi to be the president or the prime minister of this country at some point in the future. I'm on this platform. What happens?
Yeah. So let's say, at some point it does happen that Rahul Gandhi becomes the prime minister. But then, there comes this, this group of people that says, okay, we have control of the, blockchain ecosystem. Let's provide them data that says exactly the opposite, right? And says that, somebody else sort of came to power, let's say Mamata Banerjee for this use case, right? So in that particular area, if that data is forged, the smart contract that you bet on saying, a particular outcome, you will lose even even when your bet was right, even when you predicted it right. So in that whole use case, data becomes very important, right? Because every contract is going to be triggered through that data, right? And hence there needs to be a decentralized way of sourcing this data, and that has to be, foolproof in terms of nobody can scam it or hack it, right? So that use case is being championed by Chainlink across the globe. Then we have Teller, we have, an Indian homegrown startup that's called Razor Network that's doing the same. I think I really like all three of these. These are all infrastructure oriented, right? Then there is, again, a lot more tech use cases. For example, kind of data interacting with APIs. These are, sort of ways wherein different applications interact with each other, right? And, Graph3 is sort of, popularizing that whole use case, right? And it has its own token. So GRT is one of the infrastructure tokens that I really like. But apart from that, I think, what I'm really excited about, advertising being decentralized, because the whole internet kind of runs on this economic model of the masses consuming content, paying, absolutely, negligible for it. And then you have this way of, sort of advertising them, products that are relevant to them, right? Or may not even be relevant to them. So, there is this whole founder of, JavaScript as a language, which is a major paradigm in the computing world. So he's come up with, he also came up with Mozilla, right? So Mozilla, Firefox, the browser. So he's come up with a parallel browser that's built on Chrome, but uses a token called BAT, right? Basic Attention Token is its full form, right? So that's a huge one, because I feel that way content creators tend to get paid. They also have a feature, if you're consuming content, a certain portion of it also, the money that it sort of makes also comes back to you. And then, different applications that are sort of integrating to make it happen, they also get a piece of that whole data, right?
So you're saying if you're consuming content, part of the money comes back to you. Explain that to me. I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
What magic world is this where I can get paid to consume content? Tell me more.
So for example, I'm watching your content, and you have a partner, let's say Reliance, sort of sharing some information about a new product that they came up with, right? And they pay the platform or you to sort of bring high quality content, as well as share information on their product. So what will happen is, because I am giving my attention to you and the platform that's broadcasting that stream to me, what that whole channel of money will flow through cryptocurrencies. So Reliance will end up paying in crypto coins, and that will be disbursed into first the content creator, then the application, and at last us, right? As sort of people that are viewing your stream, right?
So are you telling me that the BAT, sorry to interrupt, you're telling me that a basic attention token is literally that I'm getting paid for my attention?
Yeah, exactly. And
in as many words? We finally found a way to increase people's attention spans. That's all we had to do. We had to monetize the attention span. That's all we ever had to do. Who knew?
Yeah. So, that's garnering about 10 million users a month, right? For their, browser, right? I have been using it for about 2 odd years myself. Yeah. So that's live. That's working well.
Oh, wow. That is fantastic. So, again, this is where we're coming to altcoins, right? There's Bitcoins and then there's altcoins. So my question here is, if there's a hard fork in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's had several hard forks over the years, does every hard fork then sort of count as an altcoin, or are we still looking at that as a Bitcoin derivative?
No, I would say, everything that comes off, if it has, enough of a utility, right? Or segregates itself away from Bitcoin in a meaningful way, it will all be altcoins, because there's that one coin that started the whole industry, and there are these alternate coins that got inspired and are going for different use cases, right? So it's all kind of in its own way an alternate coin.
Right. Okay. So to now come to another question, you mentioned yourself that we're looking at 7,000 different coins here, and like any other market, and use the stock market again as an analogy because it's the closest one that I can come to. You could have thousands of stocks out there, And obviously, some of them could be absolute horse shit or could be scams or could be any of those things. But in the case of a stock market, you have, say, a SEBI or you have a regulator that can step in and regulate them. So today, the people who are stepping into this world, who might step into an exchange and find 7,000 coins that are often when you log on to an exchange for the first time, like say, for example, even today, right? If I log into a coin switch and I go to what's happening in the market, I'll see gainers that are pumping like crazy.
Exactly.
But again, that's not necessarily an indication of actual substance. So in a world that has 7,000 altcoins, where I can look at, say, an Ethereum or a Cardano and be like, hey, okay, this is a blue chip. I've done enough reading and I've sort of checked this thing to be like, this is a blue chip. But the other 6,998, how do I, and this is a question that's come up across time, across episodes. How do I stop myself, or what can I do to protect myself from being scammed by loser coins or by people who are clearly in it just to sort of pump and dump or make money and then get out of the game?
Yeah, so I think, these are fundamentals that you also look at, analyzing stocks, right? What is the business that it's solving? Right now, e-commerce or anything to do with logistics attached to e-commerce is going to bring value, right? A lot of people saw it 10, 12 years ago, right? So if you're able to see those value points in this ecosystem, which will really, be kind of fundamental to using this new internet or new financial paradigm, right? So I think in that particular case, you would be okay to invest, right? Then there are other use cases that are viral, right? So for example, Dogecoins, all meme coins for example, right? So those are good, or they have that feel good factor, or I would say they also have that influence over the masses. If it goes, if it's getting so much of attention, you can sway them into a particular direction for sure, right? So all of those things that you see that a lot of people will pay attention to or will consume, that's a great way of doing it. But on your due diligence side, what you do is you figure out, what is the team behind it, right? What have they've been doing before this? Do they have a little bit of background, let's say, about the industry? Is there someone that has background about, the broader tech area that will be used to enable it, right? And if you don't have that, then, you can look at, content of, people that do technical analysis, right? So what they do is they go line by line through codes, they understand it, they basically broadly outline, what piece of code does what, and, how much of it can be changed without community's say. So let's say today, there is this, for example, Tether is another another coin, but its value stays the same. It's not
it's tethered to the US dollar, right? Literally, it's called Tether because it's tethered to the US dollar.
Absolutely. So USDT or Tether basically, retains that $1 value, right? And there will be there would be nothing that will change its value to, let's say, $1.5, or tomorrow it's not going to skyrocket to $40. But all of this is determined by code, right? And if the Tether team has access to all of the code and they can change it whenever they feel like, the whole use case could change from a stable coin to probably that of a Bitcoin if it has to, right? So the idea is you have to understand how much of it is in the hands of the team. Can they, do whatever they want to do? And that's where code or governance comes in. And, these are broader areas where you realize whether, something is worth investing in because, it has control of the community. Most of the time what we realize is, one is the use case, technical stuff, all of that. But then the other thing is, we've come into this world wherein we're trying to get away from centralized institutions, right? And if we're going to create new centralized institutions, that's going to be a problem, right?
So it should be in the hands of the community. One of the things you're looking for is ideally you want to look at a coin where like the community can change things, but there is not one unilateral, for want of a better word here, and I just use the word for it, there's not a Zuckerberg who can just be like, switch, algorithm has changed forever, and there's not a damn thing you guys can do about it.
Exactly. So that's exactly, what decentralized or decentralized governance means, and its importance is a lot when you're looking at evaluating a coin, right? So I think that's how you would probably broadly, value all of these altcoins, Rohan.
You brought up a word in your last answer that I have been very curious to talk about since the start of this recording. What and this is one of my favorite things about, I have to say, is one of my favorite things about the crypto and blockchain space is the fact that they're inventing new financial jargon that is just significantly more entertaining than old financial jargon, which brings me to my question of what on earth is a meme coin and what is a shit coin? And I can't wait to watch the guys on CNBC have to look straight in the camera and use the words meme coin and shit coin while wearing their fancy suits. So please tell me what meme coins and shit coins are.
Yeah, so I think, easier ones would be, sort of shit coins, anything that broadly, is not of value to, the so-called experts in the ecosystem. They start calling it shit coins, right? So, for example, for the longest time, Dogecoin, and, I'll get into, how Dogecoin gets us to the next part of the same question, right? But Dogecoin was considered as the biggest shit coin, right? Even when it had, a lot of market cap. So, the idea is just a use case that has gotten popularity, but does not have substance according to the, experts or the broader community. They are called shit coins, right?
It's the Salman Khan of coins, basically, where the critics are constantly writing it off. But bhai ka picture hai, to matlab sab log aayega first day, first show. Like bhai ka fan base alag hi hai, right? And I'm not even disparaging Salman Khan. I mean, that's what it is, right? Because you have a bunch of experts going, ye kya hai? Matlab, ye kaun sa coin hai jis pe kutte ka chehra hai? But people are just like, nahi bhai, bahut maza aa raha hai ye dekh ke.
Yeah, exactly. But there's like the second side of all of this, which is, meme coins are kind of replicating, the attention that, various trends get, or, for example, the roast. I think it was the biggest rage of the town. It still is in a lot of ways. I've seen it probably 20 times that, AIB did. But, Rohan,
I'll be honest with you. I'm really hoping that I can use some of these Bitcoin investments to pay off my legal fees eventually. Now that you mentioned the roast. It's the only way I'm going to be able to afford them.
Yeah, I hope so. I think Bitcoin's definitely, creating a huge space for itself, and, other coins as well. But yeah, the idea is, Rohan, there you see, a lot of these virality built in right into the coins, right? Mm-hmm. So, for example, a crypto is only as good as, or any currency is only as good as the ecosystem supporting it. Right. Sure. So if you see a lot of community taking part into a meme coin, which is, probably the most popular is Dogecoin, and that was popularized by, Elon Musk, but it still had value before that. The only problem was there was no utility to it. There was no real technology behind it, but it was just based on virality. Right. Now, in a philosophical way, it has a lot of value as well, because see, every time you look at, a meme, there is an imprint of what it's saying that goes on into your head, right? Yes. And with these continuous stream of memes, if you can channelize it into one coin, that's, really powerful if we do it right or wrong, both ways.
Right.
So that is where meme coins get value. I think, in the future, what will also happen is, for example, Dogecoin has Shiba as the dog that represents it, right? I'm a dog lover. Every day my love for, dogs grow, right? So the idea is that over time, it can be used to gain, sort of confidence or likes of people like me who like, who interface with dogs, who live with dogs, right? And then you could potentially see them, transcending into marketplaces focused on products for animals or dogs or, that way. So I think in the future, there are a lot of ways that this could go. And I'm really, hopeful that it will end up to, some good e-commerce play, if nothing else.
This is the future that the internet has always promised us. An entire financial system based solely on the strength of the cuteness of dogs and cats. This is where we were always headed from day one. This was always the future. We knew this. What is it that attracts people to meme coins? Because they've become, what I want to understand is it just on the one hand, there's the value proposition of it, as you mentioned. On the other hand, and this is something that I've wondered ever since I started reading about the crypto space, is one of the other things that makes meme coins attractive, just I don't know if I'm using this word right, but the anarchy of them, in a sense, like, is it almost a way of saying that, you know what, yes, we have this fiat currency and these notes that are signed and this thing, and they've got all these things, but you know what, fuck you, I put my weight behind this dog, and I think that's amazing. And just that's it. Is there an element of that? Or is that something that we now read into a lot just because of the culture around, and this is whether it's happening in clubhouse rooms or whether it's what Elon Musk said today, or
Yeah.
all of that?
No, so I think it's more than, just what was happening in the real world. And the reason is because you now have any coin that you buy, you have now your incentive linked to, its growth, or its
Mhm.
price sort of going up or down. You tend to lose a lot of money. And hence you see a lot of people, when it comes about financial benefits, you see a lot of people really championing the cause for it. They want to support their money or their, sort of ecosystem, right? And hence it almost becomes like a parallel religion of its own kind, right?
Sure.
So for, very initially, I've launched about, I think, 12 protocols in India. Ethereum's for profit consensus was also something that, me and my team launched in India. And we saw that, when we started, working with different teams, every team had a problem with us getting linked to, a parallel sort of offering, right?
Right.
So that was, something that we realized early on. And I think it took us about a year or so to get past that. Now I think everybody is sort of coming on to the maturity that, it's not going to be one ecosystem that takes it all, but broadly all
Right.
ecosystems are going to be aligned together. Because, for example, anybody that talks about smart contract, not only powers its own protocol, but it also,
Sure.
powers Ethereum's, value prop, right? It just explains what the problem is, right?
Sure.
The belief grows. And it's vice versa. If Ethereum talks about smart contracts, anybody that's building smart contract protocol is also going to get value, right? It's
Correct.
just the same. It's just the same.
Correct.
And that's why everybody is kind of interdependent right now, at least till the industry penetrates to the mass audience.
Right. Which
Mhm.
makes sense, because that was one of the things that was difficult for me in the last couple of years reading about crypto, etc. Sometimes if you go on forums, religious
Mhm.
is a great word to use, because people have a zeal that sometimes borders on the hateful in terms
Yeah,
of for other coins. Like today, if you're a
exactly.
Dogecoin, then for all the other coins, it's just like, fuck you, you're the worst. Um, so I'm really hoping that we do get to this maturity that you're talking about, because, like you said, I don't think this is going to be a one guy takes all
Yeah,
market. You're definitively going to have these elephants in the room, whether it's Bitcoin or ETH, and you're going to have the whales that hold and trade
exactly.
large amounts of those. But there's no planet on which there's going to be just that one guy.
Absolutely. And also it's directly, ironical to the philosophy that we started the whole space with. We're saying that, everybody should take part in growth. Everybody should be, grabbing value, let's say, that
This
tech
is
industry
true.
brings in, right? And if what it means is democratizing value is the use, is the
Sure.
base of all of this, then you need to be supportive of everything that happens here. And I think, people support those who are more open, who are collaborative, who are more,
Sure.
supporting of basically the, all the other teams that are building something in the same
Mhm.
direction. And I think we've seen that happen a lot in our ecosystem already within the last 5 years.
Right. Okay, that's great, because the one thing that is very worrying for me with the future of cryptocurrency, and it's the thing that I hope that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen, is there's no point in this endeavor if
Mm-hmm.
we're just replacing the sort of toxicity of Wall Street bros
Exactly.
with just a whole new set of Wall Street bros, right? Who
Exactly.
just, because
Exactly.
like, you might not look and act the Wall Street bro part, but if that's all you're going to
Exactly.
be all over again, then what is the point? Which brings me to one of my, I think, my final questions of the show, which is another thing that scares me about at least altcoins right now
Mm-hmm.
is you have a bunch of people, and because again I'm guessing right now it's because there are fewer stakeholders. It's not decentralized enough for to sort of protect from volatility that comes from whale movements.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is how do you watch out for a? Actually, wait, let me get one thing. What is pumping and dumping, and how should people avoid it?
Yeah. So I think the idea is that you see these movements that are drastic in nature, right? For example, Bitcoin was at $60,000. It went down to $30,000 within a month's time, right?
Right.
Or I would say a month and a half, right? And then you're seeing that it come back to 50,000, right now. So the idea is definitely there's a lot of stuff happening. For example, institutions are buying in, right, across the globe
Mm-hmm.
into various of these cryptocurrencies. That sort of brings up the price. But the idea is when you're looking at quick rich mechanisms, when you're looking at coming in today, putting in a lot of money and taking them out, let's say in 5 days, what that does
Right.
is, that makes you susceptible to other people that know you're going to be involved in this way, right? A lot
Right.
of things that also happen is everything is automated to a lot of extent in this space, right? So what can happen is the moment somebody realizes that there are bias signals, these are probably more relevant from trading point of view, right? So for example, on CoinSwitch, if I'm to get in Bitcoin again at, let's say, $45,000, and I've put in an order already, what will happen is a lot of people, when they have the same kind of orders on various exchanges, those signals can be used to, create drastic, sort of circumstances, right? For example, I have the data, I can push down the price, by pumping in money or taking out a lot of money. And how this happens is there are what we call as whales in the market, right? Which have a lot of coins, and they do these coordinated attacks, right? Wherein they do movements that either they get in or they get out to pump the price or, sort of bring it down. And now the audience sort of automatically gets in at some cases, and sometimes they get excited enough to take an emotional decision, right? So it's just important to be wary of such drastic movements in the market and not let your emotion sort of follow through on that, right? So be aware that this happens in the industry. This is probably happening only, I would say 1/3 in the magnitude as it used to happen 3 years ago. So we're getting to the point that the industry will become big enough and these things might not happen a lot, right? But yeah, it is still a facet of the industry and you have to be aware of that. I think that is, something that you have to be, smart about or educated about when you're getting into the industry.
Got it. Thank you so much, Akshay. Just to sum up everything that we have learned today, or that I have learned today from this very informative conversation. One is an altcoin is anything, essentially, if I had to simplify the definition, an altcoin is anything that is not based off of Bitcoin, that comes from other technologies and from other protocols. A lot of the altcoins that we see today are built off the Ethereum network, but they don't necessarily have to be. What altcoins do is they try to solve for other use cases and they try to solve other problems, or they try to, if there are existing problems or issues on the network, they try to mitigate or shrink those down. There are meme coins and there are shit coins, a lot of which are influenced by emotions, they're influenced by communities, they're influenced by decisions that people make on the internet in fits of anarchy and emotion and all of those things. But that doesn't necessarily mean that these things have no value or that these things are not representative of community spirit. And the other thing that I've learned is that occasionally people in cryptocurrency markets will make large coordinated moves to either pump a coin or to dump a coin. And you've got to watch for that. And when things like that happen, be careful to not take emotional decisions. Akshay, have I learned anything about altcoins, or have you been talking to
Rohan? Wow, I think you pretty much grasped all of it.
Yes, fantastic. Fantastic. Akshay, thank you so much. This has been an extremely informative conversation and a very, very entertaining one. Thank you for being on a show about crypto. Akshay Aggarwal is, of course, Blockchain India is, of course, on Twitter, where it can be found, and on Facebook and all other places where such communities can be found. Akshay, once again, thank you so much for being on the show. Thanks been great. Me. Not at all. And now that I have pumped you for information, I shall dump you from this recording. Sorry, that sounds very rude. I was going for the analogy there without realizing how rude that sounded. Not at all. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Rohan. It's my pleasure, actually. I think this is amazing that you're doing something like this, and the masses are going to be more aware about all of the things that are happening in the crypto world because of you.
I hope so, because that's the idea with the show. Because again, one of the things that it's like we were talking about, right? With finance is one of the things that worried me, especially about this entire space is it's just replacing a bunch of jargon I don't understand about the traditional market with a bunch of new jargon that I don't understand.
Exactly.
So the entire point of this show is, before we get to investing, before we get to any of this, I want to get to the root of all of these terms that you use and see. And today's episode on altcoins has been extremely informative in that regard.
Thanks, Rohan. I'm glad that you found it useful.
Super. Yeah. Thank you. And that's our show. And we'll see you next week with more terms and more things about the crypto space explained, hopefully. And that's it.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On The Longest Constitution with Priya, find out what's obscene about obscenity and why artists and writers have been penalized for it. On Cyrus Says, Rochelle Rao joined Cyrus to talk about her amazing career in IPL and her comeback on the Kapil Sharma Show. Srinath Rangamani, design head at Swiggy, joins Kedar and Abhineet on Audio Gyan to take them through his design perspectives. Get all the updates regarding current immigration trends on Know Your Qanun when Amber is joined by Shoshana T. Green and Alexandra Cole, experts from Green and Spiegel. And on The Fighting Goat, Arjun and Somesh talk about the epic MMA fights of the decade, controversies, and the end of Pride FC. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week on the network, Ciet Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch Kuber, and Intuit India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Have you ever wondered where the business world is headed? How the ways in which we create, market, and sell to consumers will evolve? Or if we'll ever go back to wearing pants while working? For answers to all of this and more, tune into Advertising is Dead with me, Varun Dugirala. Every Tuesday, as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond. You can catch all episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.